I've finally done it. I've claimed that bench space back and I've pulled out that butternut squash. It wasn't doing anything. It's still got quite a few fruits on it, but over the last few days they've gradually started to shrivel up. They're starting to rot on end as well. So there was no point in keeping it on that bench. It's taking all that bench space up and it's going to give us nothing back. So what I've decided I'm doing is I'm sowing more seeds and I'm going to grow more things in containers in here on that bench. And what I'm going to do is something I did at the beginning of the year with these sweet million plants. If you remember, before I cut these plants back, they was touching the top of that greenhouse. They was around 8 feet tall. Because they're a vining plant, they're not a dwarf variety. But we put one in quite a small container, and that plant only grew to a total of 4 feet because we restricted the growth of that plant's roots. So in essence, we created its own dwarf variety of a full-size plant, but we still got plenty of fruit off it. So that's what I'm going to do, rather than plant things outside in ground for overwintering, because we know that through autumn and winter they always get battered by winds and rains. The temperatures drop really low, and although we're going to be growing cold hardy crops anyway, if we keep them in this greenhouse we're offering them a few degrees protection against the coldest of that weather, and we can also better protect them against insects. We never get rid of slugs and snails. They're just a year-long battle. So if we grow them in greenhouse and we grow them raised on benches and we try and reduce these big plants into smaller varieties to take smaller harvests, we should have a lot better, cleaner, healthier looking plants. Because I've moved that butternut squash, we've got our first container on there now, and that's that 5-foot container of carrots. But now we've been able to push it right to the back of that bench, so we've got all this left to play with. And we moved on these peppers. I'll show you the progress of those. These are still trying to flower. We've put these in little pots so we can overwinter them indoors, and we cut quite a lot of that foliage back. But if you look, you can see just how much more has grown. You get little side shoots that come off these plants when you prune them back, and then they make a nice, stocky, healthy little plant because we took all those aged leaves away. So that's one that's okay in here for the moment, but when it starts to drop really cold, we'll be moving that indoors and trying to keep that going as well. And we're doing the same thing with this one. Again, we cut back all them bottom branches and you can see we've got fresh growth already. And the top is looking healthy, and also it's still trying to flower. And they're not a bad looking plant, to be fair. And people do use peppers as perennial houseplants. We just keep checking for aphids, and I actually just noticed something I've not seen before. It's actually got a little pepper growing on it already. That's pretty good for a plant in a very small container. But that's my plan, that's what I want to do now. I don't want to be outside in wind, rain and cold over the next few months. I want to be in this greenhouse, dry, and in a position where I can better maintain plants. I can wrap plants in bubble wrap if it gets seriously cold, which is a bit of a nuisance to do outside unless you're going to cover everything with fleece. But you're still out there in those elements yourself, and when you get to a certain age you don't want to be out there getting wet through in those cold months. But in here we can just recreate a little container garden inside this greenhouse. So we've got as carrots growing. I have got a container out there that's got beetroot in it, and we're growing those for baby beets, and that's doing really well. So I am thinking about bringing that into greenhouse as well, because once again slugs eat the leaves. This is that container beetroot that we set up, and if you remember it wasn't that long ago, and it's put on loads of really healthy growth. It's just a mass of amazing greens. But we keep having this problem where we're getting these light rain showers and then sun comes out, and I notice that some of these leaves are getting sun scorched because of that, and it makes them look less attractive. And if we're going to have to start cutting leaves off of these plants, then I'd rather be cutting them off to drop in a salad, not because they're no good. And that's what happens when they get wet and then that sun comes out. So this is a really nice healthy looking plant. So we want to look after it as best we can through autumn and winter. And I want those baby beets. We're only looking for tiny little balls of beetroot so we can pop them into jars whole. So I think that deserves a place on this bench. And now what we need to be doing is thinking about what else can I add to that. And one thing I do want to add to it is some kale. Because as I previously mentioned, we grew these sweet million full-size tomato plants in small containers and we restricted that growth but still got fruit. So why can't we do the same with a kale plant? I've grown kale in containers before and they've done really well. So what I'm looking to do is grow a plant in a container that's around 10 litres, no bigger, and just grow it to 2 or 3 feet and keep harvesting leaves as it grows. And I'm pretty sure we can do that, especially with kale, because kale is a biennial plant. So it can survive all winter and then come back in spring. And that's outdoors. So I'm sure we can do a lot better indoors, while at the same time protecting it from slugs and snails. So I'm just going to slowly build up this collection of vegetable plants in containers and see how we get on. And also quite soon, these tomato plants will be done. We'll be taking as last harvest and we'll be pulling those up. So then we've got room to bring some benches in here and that can hold even more containers of plants. So we'll try restricting that growth as much as we can and set up a little indoor garden. And I think we've managed quite fine growing a kale plant in something like that. And if I can keep them small, I just want a couple of each. I've got quite a few of these cells. These are those 12 packs that we usually use, but I cut quite a lot in half because at a certain time I don't want as many plants. So I can just do 6 sowings of each vegetable in these. And I don't want 6 plants, I only want a couple of each. But if we do 6 and put 2 seeds in each cell, we've got a much better chance of germination. And then we can select the strongest looking seedlings out of the 6 that we get. And they're only small cells and they don't take up hardly any space or compost. So for now we'll put them seeds to one side and I'll sieve some new compost. We'll get these filled and then we'll do this first sowing of his new indoor vegetable garden. And I'm only growing the seedlings in new compost. When it comes to potting them on into the containers, I'll use recycled compost, what we're saving in that shelter, and we'll just add nutrients to that. Because apart from the cost of filling containers, once it gets to autumn and winter, most of your shops stop selling compost anyway. They just save it for the following year. So I've got half a bag of compost left. And that's going to be plenty to get a lot of seedlings growing in those very small containers. It feels good to have that bench space back and to be starting new seedlings as well. Usually when you get to this time of year, a lot of people basically throw a towel in, they give up, especially if you've not had a very good growing season to start with. Of course it's going to put you off growing things during colder months if you didn't have much success during spring and summer. And I've just compacted that down a bit. I'm going to top it off with some compost. I'm not even sure how old these kale seeds are, but I have got a couple of different varieties, so if these don't work I'll just sow some others. We'll give them a few days, see how they get on. So I'm going to make this very simple, a little indentation with my finger in each of those cells, not over deep, and then 2 or 3 seeds in each cell, trying to maximise his chances of getting something first time around. So just a quick covering over the tops of those seeds, Then I'll give that a good watering because it's staying in greenhouse. We'll pop a label in so we know exactly what they are. And that's his first sowing done for this autumn winter indoor container garden. If you're interested in seeing what other plants I'm going to try and grow in this greenhouse over the next few months, please hit that subscribe button, press that notifications bell, and I'll see you next time. Take care.